It's basically some raider is like from Ram, so he's like looking for Trixie.
Oh.
Oh, the person who was hunting her.
Yeah,
Aha. Okay.
so I think I introduced that.
Okay.
Plot.
What's the name?
Shit.
That's okay.
Take your time.
Should be named Hans.
Easy.
So yeah, he has like an anger issues and a mean demeanor to everyone he meets, and an equal fighting spirit. And he usually goes when he's in combat. He usually goes berserk on the most important enemy troops there is. But he comes with an assistant slave too.
Assistant slave.
Interesting.
Interesting.
These are the older books, and it was one of them that had the calendar in it.
You're trying to figure out what time jump we have?
Yeah, and also perhaps just to start thinking more in terms of emphasizing the setting, if possible. I mean, we should remember that the sky is not blue, it's light olive. Very pale olive to hazy white, I guess. And the sun is bright red, or I don't know about bright red, but
Red.
by late afternoon, or at the hottest part of the day, the temperature here is given in Fahrenheit. It would be roughly 70 degrees Celsius.
Nice.
And you know, whatever else, you would think that if it's kind of the implication is that the world was not always like this, and that's why you still have human-like physiology that can't tolerate that. Some of the other, some of the creatures can tolerate it better, but not much better. I think even a lot of the beasts don't handle that well. Breezes on Athos are suffocating and dust laden, caking everything they touch with yellow-orange silt. On a still day, the air superheats and then suddenly creates whirlwinds. And in most places, it rains no more than once a year. In some places, it only rains once in 10 years. There is not a single river on the planet. There's evidence that they may have existed, but there is none. During the night, since it's very dry, the heat escapes and the temperature drops radically. Now, therefore, even somewhere like Nibenay is practically paradise in comparison. Water is actually available. You can actually, drink and survive and not be eaten by things and stuff like that.
It's next to a forest.
Yes, and the fact that there is a forest at all, which means groundwater. Obviously, the fields of water surrounding Nibenay, which is what the nobles basically manage, indicate the presence of groundwater, which is also feeding that forest. But it's also clear to me that one of the reasons that this kind of oppressive power structure can persist is because where else would people go? So anyway, I kind of wanted to get a better idea of it. I've already described aspects of the city, but I hope to continue to give some idea of what it's like to live there, if at all. possible. Okay, so Hans, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Hans, raider, sort of a manhunter, bounty hunter too. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I think so. So it's yeah, basically.
I mean, do we know why he's hunting? Why he's looking for Trixie?
No, I didn't get enough words to get to that point, but
Okay.
maybe next
Maybe
time.
actually that's a nice mystery, right? You're looking for Trixie,
Maybe,
and all we knew was that Trixie was in danger.
Oh, she was
Running from problems in Rum, and that if she saw anybody from Rum that was sort of like her, that might know her, it made her very worried.
She isn't actually.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what Hans is, right? We don't know, so that's kind of cool. All right.
Maybe her husband.
We don't know. You and your husbands and wives.
Come on.
You're all about your elf.
So
you're all about your
popular.
elf
It's
marriage.
so popular thing.
So, we have to have an elf wedding sooner or later just to keep you happy. All right. That leads us here. Okay, there's a couple of things to manage. One is that we have a new situation for our gladiators. First of all, Kva has switched sides. He's not going. He is now under the protection of Athashra, not. I always do that.
Yeah, at least 5 different ways we have.
I know, yeah.
A woman.
That's right. And then I didn't mess it up, but I made life more difficult by calling her sister Ithasa. So.
I am not gonna be looking at that.
Yeah,
That's okay.
that is canonical. I've got that right. Well, anyway, so Ashathra is now the patron of
Kabu?
Kaba, of Axfol, and of Sharuk. So that means that the three of you are now the core of her gladiator team.
I personally, as a player, I feel
yeah.
so stupid that I didn't realize I could have killed him with the first. I did not. I forgot that this is an option. I thought, like, the first one took two rounds to kill. Anyway, just needed to get it off.
I completely understand.
And yeah.
And then we have the fact that the whole, Ashathra's situation is not neutral. I mean, she literally killed a bunch of Templars.
Yep.
And the reason that she's going to try to get away with this is pretty straightforward.
There are not a lot of Templars left in the city?
No, there are lots, but in fact, thousands or a couple of thousand. But the difference, though, is that if she exposes their collusion with House Shom to basically rig the arena, that will disgrace the whole pack, the whole structure, and basically, it would be better for the Templar houses. In fact,
how messed up is House of Sham now?
well, that's a good question. Hold on just a moment while I look a thing up. House Shom is very slave-oriented and focused heavily on, among other things, on supplying the arena.
You have it here,
Right.
slavery and parties, and the arena has free gladiators.
Well, that's only one detail. There are
Yeah.
slave gladiators and there are free ones. And it's a big deal that they're not treated differently, actually. It's important to the arena culture that once you're in there, you eat the same, you live the same, you don't.
But you don't get to leave
But
as a slave.
correct.
Yeah.
A free gladiator can actually say, this is, I'm not doing well. I'll go back to, digging ditches. But
Take a year of sabbatical.
yeah. Let's see though. But Halshong was involved in the slave side of that, and it is, clearly they're going to be taking some kind of social hit for this. And in fact, if Shatra wants to make a case out of this, she might redistribute the slave trade a little bit, or get that, get it going with the Templar administration, that perhaps this could be rearranged so that one family doesn't get to, start packing the arena for its own purposes. So on none of this, unfortunately, I mean, if Ro were around, then maybe Shatra would, or Littletooth, Shatra would actually be able to explain this, because she likes talking to those characters, but that's no longer the case. So all that you two know, Sharuk and Axwal, all that you know is that you're now, that the administration has changed. And although this drug is, there's no turning the clock back. You can't make this drug not exist.
No.
So the only thing to do is to bill whether a match is using it or not, and actually have that be a feature. Which makes me disturbed thinking of professional sports today and steroids. You could have like the steroid league and the non-steroid league, which is weird and gross. But
in the 80s, it was all steroid.
Oh,
yeah, but
thoroughly.
Yeah, but now it's open. They have this steroid Olympic. So there is some major.
Is there?
Coming next year or something like that.
I didn't know that. Well, look at me anticipating and reflecting the society we live in and all that stuff. Okay, so we have that. I mean, so it's going to be a little while. I mean, all of the characters were injured. All of this restructuring is going to take time and be difficult, right? And it's not going to they're not going to have one meeting, at the Templar headquarters and resolve all of this. And a whole lot of status among the Templars is going to shift up and down at the mid and lower levels. I think that the Sky Singers would have to have a slightly different relationship, because they were working directly with House Shang. So that's actually who you were being mules for.
Yeah.
So therefore.
But it wasn't very open.
No, I mean, but the point being that now it can't be through House Shang. It has to now be through the Templars. Which means suddenly a heavy Templar presence in the Hill District at the Elven Market, which is going to make absolutely nobody happy. So at least a temporary heavy Templar presence, just to establish the way we do things now. And yes, you can get up to all your shady little dealings, but every so often you have to get a lesson in context. So one could imagine, in fact, a detachment of Shadow Brides, and perhaps supported by a squad of half giants, going into the Hill District and, spending a little while there, having conversations and solving any festering problems, acutely. Execution day. Okay, these dozen people are executed today, and I believe we've all learned a lesson here, haven't we? That sort of activity.
That just means that they also find a black market for the black market.
That's, well, again, it's not permanent, right? It will return, but with a certain amount of restructured, commerce, as you say, there's always, if you set up a new building, it just means a different corner now. So something will evolve sooner or later, but right now, that's actually in a state of change. And is your character an elf?
No, it's a human.
Okay. And so then, so anyway, that lets us know a little bit about the gladiators. And for you, much of this is not directly, not directly an impact.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
More people will need water and perhaps stock up on it and
Okay.
do that sort of thing. It's
So tell me a little bit about what Zerto does on a day. Perhaps the news of the day is the beginning of the crackdown. They announced executions in the Elven Market and the probably a very evident rearrangement of Templars that people are used to seeing in their neighborhoods. Well, now there are new faces. There's been a certain shuffling, right, of who is in charge of things here and there around the city. Tell me what and also at the West Gate is where a lot of the what you might think of as the more commerce, more general commerce, all sorts of things coming from all sorts of places. This city does not get along that well with the city over there, but that doesn't mean that goods aren't traveling back and forth rapidly at all times. And Tyr is that way, the biggest city in the world.
okay.
So that means that the interesting things to buy are piling up here. One thing I've learned, and they actually have referenced it in these books about ancient trade, is that it was that cross-city, cross-national trade was deliberately denationalized. And so therefore, once you were engaged in that, you were not representing any government and could not therefore be, you, for example, would be considered a non-combatant. But that is one reason why in ancient cities, trade built up just outside of the gates. So you would have a little commerce town outside the gates that the city would protect, but it wasn't, but they could say, okay, it's not in the city.
And the merchants don't have to pay tax and whatnot for bringing
Not to
specific
there,
stuff
no.
inside the city.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of interesting, there's an interface about when products and commerce becomes part of the local government or under its authority, and what it's like before it gets there, right? There's a lot of, I'm sure that evolves in every case. So that's happening there.
Yep.
The reservoir is, unsurprisingly, the reservoir district. And the question is, I want to know, what's your day like? Where do you go?
Since I've risen quite a lot within the trade, so I'm not out selling as an active street merchant.
Right.
So I'm more overseeing the daily trade and have.
You have clients.
Yes.
You don't serve the public.
But
you
have
clients.
I might have a stall or several stalls with people peddling.
I see.
My things.
What is your water like? What's your brand?
It's branded. It's a fancy brand, but it's not the more like discerning taster will know that it's maybe not the best water.
Right.
So,
Right.
but it's all brand.
So it has a particular flavor or a kind of.
It has a character.
Okay.
One could say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But are you telling me that it's like a real kind of a scam? You're basically just putting caps on
Not
regular crap water, or are you actually doing anything?
in some cases, if it's too beneficial to
I see.
to avoid, then yeah, definitely then it's sewer water more or less.
Oh.
but in most cases, it depends on the clients as well
I see.
and the market. Maybe I'm selling really rancid stuff to the poor
Mhm.
people or slightly above the poorest. Those who
Mhm.
can afford can buy this, but it's not that.
Well, it's what I'm trying to say is that if they just want basic drinkable water, they get
Yeah,
it
but
for
this
free.
one is as a fancy package.
Ah, okay.
It's a bit of status screening.
It's
So
big.
it makes them feel better about
I
themselves.
think my percentage
yeah.
it has to be better.
Yeah, at least I pay for my water.
Yeah.
That's the kind of people I sell to.
Drink water.
So, and then I keep an eye out for competition. If someone tries to move into that area of trade.
I'm a little more interested in your clientele as
Mhm.
opposed to your the street aspect.
Okay, sure.
I'm a little more. I mean, this is where Zerto, I think, is going to be putting
Yep.
his attention each day is his specific clients that would be
Mhm.
ongoing customers involved.
Okay,
right.
like this, I have a base
Right.
that's working there
Mhm.
and buying the poor stuff, but I'm also trying to sell and brand myself as more.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely,
so-
definitely. I'm trying to be top high class of
Right.
society, definitely.
And to go to the noble houses might be a little above your means.
Yeah, but
Other merchant dynasties or successful artists.
Yep.
Which is a big deal.
Yep.
It's it's not unheard of that there would be, say, a procession down one of the major avenues.
Mhm.
That's almost like a parade, but it's more like a dance
Mhm.
number, right? Like a traveling Broadway
Mhm.
dance performance, sonically enhanced
Mhm.
in many cases. So the expert ones, are using psionics to enhance their dancing,
Mhm.
and that can be really spectacular, and probably has a lot to do with different holy days or different city events historically. Probably some sort of pageant, is involved.
Yeah.
So that actually is a big thing in Nibenay. So people who manage those events, people who are celebrities in those events, none of them are terribly high social status, but they are well known and they are wealthy in many cases. So I'm just trying to think of what sort of clients who would have wealth who are not the water gentry.
Yeah.
I mean, as you saw, they have their own processing plants and stuff like that. They would be buying from people like you, but people who would be far, far, far elevated in their success. So it's more of a status symbol to have this person's water at your party. Okay. In the interest of this activity, let's tell me where you are and what you're doing. And also the gladiators, you don't live at the arena, obviously.
We are free gladiators.
Well, that's a good question.
I wasn't a slave.
Right, well, Sharuk had been remanded there as a criminal.
Well,
but that has been
actually,
managed a little bit.
even
Right.
not officially, because
Yeah.
it was through House of Sean. I
know.
basically didn't.
Right.
a
So
thing
let's
to
just
them.
say that if you want to detach yourself from that past, you might want to take action. Because without you taking action about that,
Yeah.
then it means that it means that nobody's going to make the change for you.
I might have put a point in the fact that I witnessed my sister die in
Yes.
service of a shot trial.
Yes, I know. Uh-huh.
And
Exactly.
I might be using that as
I
a
could-
leverage.
let's deal with that.
Yeah.
But as far as where your characters live,
It could be.
there are going to be flats effectively dedicated to this, and those are going to be policed. Templars oversee where the gladiators live. You guys are valuable hunks of
But
flesh.
is it in the arena?
Not in the arena, no.
Even if, okay.
I mean
It's-
that's like that would be like footballers playing, living at the stadium. You don't live at the stadium.
Do the others get a normal apartment?
The others who?
The others. Oh wait, who's the gladiator? Is it?
You two. Yes. Uh-huh.
So, like me personally, do I get to have like a?
No, because your character is not a gladiator.
So I'm homeless.
You're
Oh.
Or
basically
visiting.
yeah, you're
okay,
visiting the
yeah.
city. So
Yeah.
the question is whether that's a good question. Now I was trying to establish
Yeah.
them
How
because
to
your
tie
question
it
is
down.
I don't have to tie it
No.
particularly. We just all have to be in a
Trouble
situation.
will find us.
That's right.
Yeah.
We have to be in a situation whose pieces involve people, but even if your characters don't really connect with one another, that is okay. Now that we're all in the city. So Christian, do tell me a little bit. Your character has arrived in Ram.
Not Ram.
In Nibenay. And you are a person who is clearly an effective fighter. So the question is, what do you want to do? Will you offer yourself as, say, security for people who have goods or who want protection of some kind? Do you want to get involved with the criminal side of things, or do you want to get sort of a proper job? Do you want to
I think like it would be fitting that he was more spending his time like I think that the slave carries like enough material and supply for him to pursue on stalking. So I was thinking that he would like be listening in on conversations of he's not good at stalking yet, so he's just stalking high class people who have like confidential information about like these gladiators, woodies and stuff like that, trying to establish like some info about the whereabouts of Trixie.
Okay.
Through that mean.
the events of the events at the arena
I was
are
thinking like he hasn't realized yet that
She's one of the people that
well,
died at the arena.
and
Yeah.
that's where we're going to start. Because just to get to a look at Nibenay and where, given what you said, where I would expect you to
like it was the hill district the potions were at, or
well, the hill, first of all, her being an elf would imply
no, I mean the potions.
Yep.
yes.
Oh yeah.
And the not that the this is, it says, the Hill District is a gathering place for the shadier elements of Nibenese society: cutthroats, cut purses, poisoners for hire, elves, and black marketeers. Note that elves are lumped in with
No,
social
they are
descriptions.
in
Yeah.
their own
Right.
category of
Of
those
those
different
things.
type of
Yeah.
criminals.
The worst one.
Criminals and elves.
Okay, they will be more fitting to
And the criminals also known as elves.
Different type of criminal specialties, elves.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Exactly.
blackmailers.
Exactly.
I think
So-
it would be better for Hans to be like offering security in the criminal underworld.
Right. Okay. There we go.
Bouncer.
So, and
Yeah.
living somewhere,
Or muscle work.
right, finding a place to stay in the Hill District is actually pretty easy. If you show up there, show that you can take care of yourself, somebody with some sort of establishment will simply provide a place for you to stay. and see if you can get along in whatever network they have. And sooner or later, before you know it, you're part of a network of activity. So that seems perfectly reasonable. I am envisioning the Hill District as extremely not flat.
Well,
Right. Yeah, I mean, and so it
Hilly.
is a big hill. And I'm thinking of the city of San Francisco, as a matter of fact, which is,
I've been there.
I
That's one
grew
of
up,
the few places in the US I've
uh-huh.
been.
And I know San Francisco pretty well, or at least in the decades in the past. And one thing that is sort of surprising to everybody who goes there is everybody's walking at this steep grade, and the people who live there don't seem to think anything of it, and everybody else is like,
They have
"Oh,
very
this is going
very
on."
good calf muscles.
Exactly, right. And so, so it's a little bit like that. But that means that you get these buildings that are built along this hill, and that means that every building is half on top of part of the next building down. So you have kind of these people have certainly knocked holes in them, so you get these sort of tunnels or passageways snaking through the buildings of the
Yeah,
Hill
that'd be
District.
perfect.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
also have elves parkouring
Yeah,
upstairs, and there are certainly tunnels below that
Yes.
get out.
Yeah, we know about that.
Through.
Yes, that is
That
not. It
hidden.
doesn't look like what it looks like
Yeah.
on a map. Well, there you go. That's what I have of our session for this particular bit of the Dark Sun Pool game, because the recording was borked and expert assistance was able to recover only the first 34 minutes. So that's what you've seen, lightly edited. And the next part of play, the continuation for over an hour and a half or so, was pretty adventurous. It was scattered because of the separations of the characters, the fact that I actually didn't know much about some of the starting characters for the session. And it was, as I say, kind of fragmented, but a few things came together. I really liked setting up the arena situation of play as sort of a place where we do work and where there are people doing things. It was awfully hard to get away from this concept of slavery, of people locked up in pens all the time. The idea that slave gladiators could just walk freely around the city under a certain amount of protection because of their value was difficult to get across. But I kind of liked the idea of the sort of workspace of the arena. Now, the other two characters, Zerto, our water merchant, ended up wanting to sell water at the arena, very much like a peanut vendor in some ways, maybe one step up from that. But also the shenanigans involved. We talked about the people who take care of concessions for the arena. We talked about a competitor. There were some conflicts about all of that. He made a big enemy of the competitor, partly by winning over that concession. And that sort of brought him into the zone of the arena. If that's what Eric had in mind, that's fine. But I was kind of interested too, because this whole business of water economy basically means anybody involved with it could well come into conflict or be seeding other conflicts that affect other characters. Christian's new character, who is the person that Trixie was running from or was afraid was coming after her or related to that in some way. He deliberately left it a mystery for this session. Is a real, hard case, a tough guy, outsider, takes no shit, earns respect by kind of like glaring and being there and taking care of shit. And in my opinion, would have integrated quite nicely into the culture in Nibenay without even much effort. So we spent some time doing that. He ended up actually working with Abyuk, the same fellow who arguably got Trixie killed in the same sense that in the sense that Trixie was, relatively self-destructive anyway. or at least had some bad luck along the way of tap dancing around her problems. So anyway, what this new fellow is going to do about that, well, at least he ended up being connected to all the events, just like Christian was talking about wanting to do. So that did occur. Back to the kind of arena situation, Sharuk, Denitza has taken over Ruz's brother, the non-player character, as her player character now, and written up a story for him, making him a sort of different guy from Rogue, which is kind of nice. But quite into the, honor my sister's memory, recover her body, very heavily into his sense of blood debt to Axval, the other gladiator player character, who incidentally is a very odd figure, being a Thrykeen, a humanoid bug, who was, rather than being raised among other Thrykeen, was a feral raised by Dune Reapers. So, he's been a sort of a tricky dude to play and deal with throughout. Not because I'm trying to anticipate things, but he's a real wild card in a lot of ways. Not to mention his own actual Dune Reaper, sidekick, or as he calls him, his brother. So now they are ensconced as gladiators. So he's part of that community and playing that a little bit, doing some training, as they were all terribly injured in previous events. So there was a lot about them healing up and training carefully in the context of getting better and stuff like that. So that's what we played. And I'm sort of feeling my way through, hey, this is a city. Hey, these are different power structures going on. Hey, these are problems that people in it face. And the arena as a crux point for where those things often explode. Well, that's what I'm doing, or that's what I'm seeing occur and doing my part in, with some interest in whether, we'll do it. That's part of the fun here for me, is not knowing how well it'll go or how perfect it will be or brilliant or anything. I'm looking at a bunch of rich stuff and we're seeing what happens.